Jaylen Brown got sold for cheap, and yeah, that sentence sounds insane. But when the news broke that the Boston Celtics had shipped Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers and got back Paul George plus 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, the whole basketball world did a double take. Fans instantly lost their minds, and honestly, you can see why. Ever since Boston took Jaylen Brown with the 3rd pick in the first round back in 2016, he has grown into one of the league's biggest stars. After a full decade in Celtics green, he was not just another good player. He was part of the franchise identity. Over the years, he helped lead Boston to a championship, won an Eastern Conference Finals Most Valuable Player award, made 5 All-Star teams, and earned 2 All-NBA selections. Last season, with Jason Tatum missing most of the year because of injury, Brown took on the lead role and dragged the Celtics to the 2nd seed in the East. He also put together the best regular season of his career, averaging 28.7 points, 7 rebounds, and 5.1 assists a night, making All-NBA second team and finishing 6th in Most Valuable Player voting. So of course, people are asking the same question: why on earth would Boston choose this exact moment to move him? Now here is where I'm probably going to lose some people. I actually do not think trading Jaylen Brown was the real problem. The bigger issue is what Boston got back. If you are moving Brown, the last thing you want in return is an older Paul George, a player whose age and availability are already flashing warning signs. Because here's the uncomfortable truth a lot of fans do not want to hear. That 3-year, $183 million contract Brown is on, that is a massive burden. And if we are being brutally honest, Brown might be one of the most overrated players in the league relative to his public reputation. Not because he is bad. He is clearly not. But because once you really break down his game, the gap between his image and his actual on-court value starts to get pretty hard to ignore. Let's start with what he does well, because there is plenty there. Brown's biggest value is simple. He can score, and he can score in ugly situations. When the offense falls apart, when the possession is dying, when the defense takes away the first and second options, he can still manufacture a bucket. For a supposed star-level player, that is one of the most valuable skills in basketball. Last season, with Tatum missing most of the schedule, Brown really did shoulder a huge portion of the shot creation and scoring load. He averaged 28.7 points per GME, which ranked 4th in the league. His usage rate was 36.2%, 3rd in the league behind only Luka Doncic in a Giannis Antetokounmpo season, shortened by injury. He also ranked 2nd in the league in shot-ending possessions per 100 trips. And if you take Giannis out of the equation, Brown was basically 1st. Add in the possessions where he either created for himself or for teammates, and he still sits near the top of the league. So yes, his scoring burden, his volume, and his offensive role were absolutely elite. And it is not just the amount of scoring, it is the kind of scoring. Brown has built a lot of his reputation on being able to hit tough, uncomfortable one-on-one shots. And to be fair, that reputation did not come from nowhere. In the 25-26 season, he scored 806 total points on unassisted 2-pointers, 2nd in the entire league behind only Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That stat matters because it tells you who can really create for themselves in tight spaces against strong defenders in the mid-range and at the rim. The names near the top of that list are exactly who you would expect: Shai Jalen Brunson, Kawhi Leonard, Cade Cunningham, Therese Maxey, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant. Brown being right there with them tells you one thing very clearly: his self-created shot making is real. The talent jumps off the screen too. He is explosive, powerful, strong through contact, and quick in tight areas. His footwork in the mid-range has gotten more polished over time, whether it is attacking the rim, rising up for a contested jumper right in someone's face, or bullying his way into free throws. Brown is dangerous. In that same 25-26 season, he attempted 16.1 shots per 100 possessions from the broader mid-range area. That is actually more volume than some players most people think of as mid-range masters, including Shai, Kawhi Leonard, and Kevin Durant. He basically stopped caring about good shot location and started living off tough pull-ups and face-up jumpers. He ranked 4th in the league in face-up isolation scoring volume. So yes, if you want to describe Jaylen Brown in 3 words, it would be this: volume scoring and shot making. And that is exactly where the problem begins. Because once you move beyond those 3 things, Brown's offensive value gets a lot thinner. First, he scores a lot, but he does not score efficiently enough. Compared with the very best offensive engines in basketball, his true shooting is low. Last season, Brown's true shooting percentage was actually half a point below league average. And this is not some one-year fluke. For most of his career, his scoring efficiency has hovered around league average. Some people will immediately say, well, of course he takes hard shots. He's asked to bail the team out, and yes, that is partly true. Brown absolutely takes difficult attempts. He's one of the tougher shot takers in the league. But the idea that all of his inefficiency comes from late clock grenade duty does not really hold up. Even within Boston, the player who took the most shots with between 0 and 4 seconds left on the clock last season was not Brown. It was Peyton Pritchard. Pritchard posted an effective field goal percentage of 49.3 in those possessions. Brown, who was second on the team in those attempts, posted only 39.9. So no, you cannot just wave away all of the inefficiency by saying he was forced into impossible situations. And it looks even worse once you adjust for role and context. Yes, Brown takes isolations and tough pull-ups, but he also benefits from the spacing and off-ball advantages created by Boston's system. He is not one of those stars who has to create every single thing under constant pressure. He gets a fair number of clean catch and shoot looks. He gets open floor transition opportunities. Models do not treat those as the hardest possible chances, and Brown still has not been especially efficient in those situations either. So even after accounting for style and role, his relative true shooting still lands in one of the weakest tiers on the chart. At the end of the day, Brown is the definition of a high volume medium efficiency score. Then there is the shooting profile. Brown still does not take enough threes. Last regular season, only 26.2% of his shots came from beyond the arc. For a modern perimeter star, that is a pretty low number, and it is not just about volume. The accuracy is not good enough either. He has now shot below 36% from 3 for 5 straight seasons. Catch and shoot threes, in particular, have not been stable. Meanwhile, he takes a ton of mid-range jumpers, especially long twos. Across the whole mid-range, he shot 45.2%, which is not bad in a vacuum, but it falls short when you compare him to the true upper-tier shot creators. Shai and Durant were both at 54%. Kawhi Leonard was at 51.2. Luka Doncic was at 51.1. DeMar DeRozan was at 49.5. Jaylen Brunson was at 48.7. Suddenly Brown's 45.2 does not look so special. And on the long twos, he takes most often the ones from around 14 feet out to the 3-point line. He shot only 43.3%, but the bigger problem is not just whether those shots go in. It is what those shots actually do for the offense. A great mid-range creator usually gives you extra value on top of the points. Some of them use that threat to open passing windows. Some keep turnovers low. Some pair it with elite 3-point gravity. Brown takes a mountain of mid-range shots, but the return on that investment is mostly just two things. 1, preserving his own scoring numbers, and 2, occasionally hitting a bailout shot. In terms of raising the team's overall efficiency, creating easier opportunities for teammates, improving the structure of the offense, or controlling mistakes, there is just not much there, which gets us to the core of the issue. Brown, at heart, is still mainly a scorer. And when your primary value is scoring, your efficiency has to be truly elite. If it is not, your overall impact gets capped very quickly. There are players in the league whose scoring efficiency is not perfect either, but those guys make up for it with playmaking, passing control, and offensive orchestration. Brown does not. That is one of his biggest weaknesses: ball control, passing, and turnover management. Year after year, Brown sits near the top of the league in non-passing turnovers, loose handle turnovers, driving turnovers, offensive fouls, you name it. And when you look at the league leaders in total turnovers, most of those guys are true offensive conductors, primary playmakers, the engines of their teams. Brown is not that. His passing tendency is not especially high. His time on the ball is not absurd. Yet, among that group, his assist to turnover profile is shockingly poor. For a player who is supposed to be a core star, that is a serious problem. In the 25-26 season, the Celtics' top 2 players in assists per GME were actually Jurek White and Peyton Pritchard. That alone says a lot. Even off the ball, Brown is not some master mover with genius feel for team offense. He can cut a little, he can attack off a handoff, he can use screens and get into actions. Because he is a high-level scorer, there will always be some level of attention on him. And once he catches the ball, he can still drive or pull up. But that is where it mostly stops. He is not an elite off-ball relocator. He is not the kind of player whose movement tears a defense apart. Add in the fact that his three-point shooting has slipped in recent years, especially on catch-and-shoot attempts. And his overall shooting gravity is just average. In other words, Brown's off-ball impact is pretty ordinary. And then there is defense, where his reputation has probably got even more generous than his offense. People still love bringing up his work against Luka Doncic in the 2024 finals, and yes, if we are talking strictly one-on-one defense, Brown can absolutely hold his own. At times, he can look like a real stopper. Back when Tatum was healthy, Brown often took on tough perimeter assignments. He is strong, explosive, switchable, and hard to bully in isolation. If all you care about is whether he can survive on an island, the answer is yes. But team defense is bigger than that, and his bigger picture defensive impact has been ugly. Over the last 3 years, Brown's defensive regularized adjusted plus-minus sat at -1.7, which placed him ahead of only about 13% of the league. That means, in terms of actual defensive impact, he's been closer to the bottom than the top. Why? Because his off-ball focus is weak. he ball watches. He loses shooters, he misses actions, and even though he can defend one-on-one, he does not offer much help defense or disruption. According to 3-year defensive adjusted plus-minus data, opponents actually turned the ball over 1.2% less often when Brown was on the floor. Think about that. He was not creating extra chaos. He was reducing it. That ranked 5th worst in the league. On top of that, despite his strength, his high center of gravity makes it harder for him to deal cleanly with quicker guards in pick and roll situations. His defensive discipline is shaky too. It is not just the missed rotations. He fouls too much. In the 25-26 season, he averaged only 1 steal per GA meet, while committing 2.7 fouls. For a player who is not battling centers all night and is not carrying some insane interior workload, that steal to foul balance is just not good. So the truth is this, Brown's on-ball defense looks better than his overall defensive impact actually is. And once you stack all of those weaknesses together, a lot of the impact metrics start to look downright brutal. Over the last 4 seasons, Boston has been worse on a per 100 possession basis with Brown on the floor than with him off it in all 4 years. Even in the so-called single-star season of 25-26, the Celtics were still outscored by 5.6 points per 100 possessions with Brown on the court. That kind of on-off profile is almost impossible to find for an all-star level player. Over the last 3 years, his regularized adjusted plus-minus value was just plus 0.8. In the 25-26 season, his estimated plus-minus was only plus 2.2, ranking 56th in the entire league and only 4th on his own team. And then came the playoffs where things looked even rougher. Across 7 postseason games, Boston was outscored by 23 points, with Brown on the floor. In the 6 playoff games Tatum played, the Celtics were plus 28 with Tatum on the court. Brown still averaged 25.4 points in the playoffs, but his true shooting was only 55.1, which means the same old problem showed up again. Decent volume, underwhelming efficiency. Even worse, his assist ratio dropped further, and his limitations as a creator and ball handler became even more obvious when the competition got tougher. That is the bigger point. With this level of passing, playmaking, and turnover control, Brown is probably never going to be a true number 1 option on a championship level team no matter where he plays. He loves isolation, he loves the mid-range. He loves powering into defenders and taking tough shots, but that style does not consistently target defensive weaknesses in a smart, scalable way. He is not stable enough at hunting smaller defenders. His handle is not clean enough. His turnover profile is too shaky. And the wild part is, after 10 years in the league, the Philadelphia 76ers were still daring him to go left, like it was everybody's first scouting report. So if you judge Jaylen Brown purely by how fans talk about him, there really is a noticeable gap between the reputation and the reality. He is making around $60 million a year, but he is not good enough to be a real franchise, number 1. And if he is your number 2, the fit is still imperfect, because the defense is not impactful enough, the passing is not good enough, and the offensive versatility is not clean enough. In the end, you are paying superstar money for a high volume scoring finisher who does not offer perfect compatibility. That is a rough deal. From that angle, I actually do not think Brad Stevens was wrong to move him. The real mistake was bringing back Paul George. If Stevens had turned Brown into someone younger, or someone carrying less financial pressure, I honestly would not have had a huge problem with the trade itself. That is the twist here. The decision to move Brown is defensible. The return is what makes the whole thing feel off. At the end of the day, Jaylen Brown is basically a more advanced version of Jonathan Kuminga. And I do not mean that as a personal shot. I have nothing against Brown. But if a player is earning well over $60 million a year and his actual game value cannot support the role of true team leader or ideal second star, then yes, I am going to say the contract is absurd. That is my view, and I know a lot of people will hate it, but sometimes the truth in basketball is not what sounds nicest. It is what still holds up after you stop watching the highlights and start looking at the whole picture.